So, hi, I'm Chris Caplice. I'm the Executive Director of MIT's Center for Transportation and Logistics. I'm also the Director of the MITx MicroMasters program in Supply Chain Management, and also created Freight Lab at MIT, which looks at all aspects of freight transportation management for the design, procurement, and management of any freight transportation system. So this is a really interesting time in terms of transportation and logistics and supply chain management in general. So some of the trends that are coming on that I think are really important, there's a handful. And so two that I want to talk about are autonomous vehicles, or autonomous trucks, and then the shared economy or service economy. So for autonomous trucks, what's happening now is slowly we're seeing more integration of technology into trucking and other vehicles where the human interaction part is getting less and less. So it's not a matter of if we're going to have autonomous vehicles, autonomous trucks, it's when. And we're seeing that evolution much faster now. And so the question is, what happens when we truly have autonomous trucks? What will that do to transportation and logistics? And the bottom line answer is no one knows, but there's some things that we can think about. So for example, if I have an autonomous truck, my length of haul I can do in one day now doubles to maybe 1,000 miles. And so if I have a much larger length of haul, then I can reach more customers from one location than I could before. So what this means is maybe fewer DCs located further apart. It could change the structure of a supply chain. So by seeing these autonomous vehicles, it will lower costs, it might lower the workforce for drivers, but it could also change the structure of many supply chains. So that's one big change. Another big change that I'm seeing in supply chains is the growth of a service economy. So instead of owning an asset, a lot of times people will be sharing that asset or renting it, paying for it by the usage. And so we're seeing this in a lot of industries, and the hallmark industry I like to point to is the recorded music industry, where we used to buy our CDs or records or cassettes, then we'd do them digitally downloading, and now more people are streaming. And so they've moved from owning a product, whether it's physical or digital, they've moved now to actually renting it. And so this is changing the way that we consume products. So if you think about supply chains, this has dramatic impacts, because no longer is the focus on providing this product, it's providing this service that utilizes a product. So you can see fewer assets themselves, but being hired, have a higher utilization. So this will change the way that supply chains produce, manage, and operate their supply chains. So if you look at autonomous vehicles or the growth of a service economy or other trends, look at drones, 3D printing, again, the short answer is no one knows what that's going to do to affect the industry, but we can have some guesses. So if you look at the brokerage business, the 3PL business, any company that's in the business of providing transportation services to other companies, this could dramatically change their operations. It could go to one extreme where these autonomous trucks are actually independent owner-operators, and anyone could own one, it gets serviced, and it just collects fees. The other extreme could be that they're collected and they're actually owned by one entity. So there's an open debate whether there will be consolidation between the 3PL industries or whether it will be more of a fragmentation. And that's something that's open, and it might be country by country specific, but it's something that's interesting and worth paying attention to. So over the last couple of years, there's been this trend of big data, where we now have the capability of capturing a lot of data on different operations, and so we're swimming in data. Previously, 10, 20, 30 years ago, we were starved for data, and so we used to make assumptions and shortcuts. Now it's just the opposite. We're drowning in all of this data. And so the challenge is, how can I make sense of it? And this is even being exacerbated more by trends like the Internet of Things, where machines to machines, they can talk. So you're getting all this sensor data, all this information. And so on one hand, it offers a lot of promise, and the other hand, it's a dangerous thing. So on the promise side, we can look at how we can actually capture this, and there's different techniques that are coming out, machine learning, more independently operated mechanisms that can try to glean insights out of this massive amounts of data. But on the downside, sometimes we get lost in the data and we lose the big picture. One of the things that a lot of students today have lost is that idea of approximation, the use of small data instead of big data. Because with the way systems are now, I can take a massive amount of data, press a button, and do all this kind of analysis to it. But many times, unfortunately, the student can't explain what they did, but they look at the results. With small data, you're being forced to make assumptions and to think hard about the problem, to make an approximation. So once people had to stop using slide rules, and where you had to have a good sense of estimation, approximation, many people have lost the sight of how to better estimate. And so there's a risk of having this big data in that you lose sight of what's practical and what's real. So I always like to argue that you should start with small data first, make some assumptions, and get a best estimate of what your solution will be, then dive into the big data and see if you can find more insights. Because the best approach, in my opinion, is a combination of that small data and understanding your assumptions and that big data analysis, taking advantage of all that data that you have available to you. So the question is, how can people better educate themselves throughout their career? What's definitely happened is no one views education as something you stop once you graduate from undergrad anymore. It's a lifelong process because things are changing. Technology changes, operating principles change, so you have to have a lifelong learning attitude. And so there are many different ways you can learn, and there's so many different options out there. Because some things you want to learn in a group, some things you can learn independently. And so picking how you learn should be matched with what you're trying to learn. So, for example, if you want to get an in-depth knowledge of supply chain that includes both the technical analytical skills as well as some of those softer skills that are needed, some of the better programs out there are very intensive 1-year or 10-month programs such as MISI, the Malaysian Institute for Supply Chain Innovation, and their 10-month program. So that's a great way to combine both the analytical and those soft skills. Sometimes people want to just learn certain aspects of the soft skills and can't spend a full 10 months. And in that case, maybe an online education or a different course might make sense for you there. But the important thing is to recognize that you have to have a lifelong learning plan and then pick how you learn with what you want to learn. If it's something that's more analytical and standalone, then an online course might be enough for you. But if you want to have something more in depth and understand how it interacts with other elements, then perhaps something that's more face-to-face or residence. And then there are also combinations that allow you to blend those together. So I think the real innovations we've seen over the last 5 years is a combination of all of these different techniques into one program. So the reason why I love coming to MISI to teach is because the students are so focused. So it's nice to be in a small classroom environment where no student can hide. And so it enables me to actually force interaction between the different students. When I teach large classes of 100 or so people, then it's easy to hide in the shadows and the students don't get all the benefit. So what I love about MISI is you come and you can have a focused discussion with the students and they can force interaction and discuss points. It makes for a much more interesting case study analysis and you get much deeper learning and takeaways. And so my real value that I have by coming here is you get to teach a group of very energetic and engaged students in a small classroom setting, which is perfect.